If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you. Hey, good evening, everyone. It's Thursday. Woo! My second favorite day of the week. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. I'm your host, Dr. Donna White Carey, and I thank you so much for joining me tonight. As you know, or actually if this is your first time, you may not know, but I hope that you mark it now, that every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you have an appointment with the doctor. So thank you for keeping your appointment tonight. Give yourself a clap that you kept your appointment with the doctor tonight. If you have not already done so, I would really appreciate it if you, by the end of this show, if you found anything that was noteworthy, any good information, something that you didn't already know, that you would do me and us, our team, a favor and go over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. We'd really appreciate it. And then hit that bell icon so that you know every time I go live, which is when, I just said it, every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So welcome. As you know, our goal here on Talking with Dr. Donna is to revolutionize the way we view health, particularly in the Black community. And how we do that is by building a generational health network. All of you out there, you're a part of this generational health network. By focusing on the 4 pillars of health, our spiritual pillar of health, our emotional and mental pillar of health, our physical health, and our environmental health, if we pay attention to all 4 of these pillars within each of our generations, I believe that we can end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. So come on and become a part of the Generational Health Network. All right, these are all the different ways in which you can find me at My Dr. Donna on Facebook and Instagram, and then also on Twitter at Talking with Dr. Donna. You can find me, connect with me, interact with me, let me know what you like about the show, and let me know if there's some topics that you all want to hear about and learn more about. I'm always open to topics. As always, good evening, everyone. We are live, and I encourage you all to put a comment in the chat. If you have a comment, or if you have a question, or if you just want to say hi, like hello, Emery and Liz and Charlene. Hey, Auntie Janella, Annette, Charlene. Hello, all of y'all out there. Thank you so much for joining. And yes, I am excited about this segment too. So before we go through this segment and get to our guest tonight, my big brother, Tony Tomato, we're going to celebrate Women's History Month. Woo! Because this is the month we women have to say congratulations and thank you to all of the fantastic women in our lives. And today, I'm actually paying tribute to one of my mentors. Her name is Dr. Josephine Isabelle Jones. Dr. Josephine Isabelle Jones is the first Black female cardiologist in the United States. Go, Dr. Isabelle Jones. I didn't even know that until I started to read about her. She was born in Memphis, Tennessee in the 1940s. I'm not going to tell you her age. But she's known, like me, that she wanted to be a pediatrician since the age of 8. She attended college in Tennessee at Le Moyne College and a 4-year full ride academic scholarship. So you know she's super smart, right? Then went to medical school at Meharry Medical College, where she was only one of 4 women in the medical school class of 70 men. That's Dr. Isabelle Jones, in case you can't figure it out. That's her right there in the middle with all these men around her. She also was the first Black medical resident, pediatric resident, and resident in general at the University of Tennessee. And then she went to UCLA, my alma mater, to become a pediatric cardiologist, did her fellowship there, and then remained on faculty and became the assistant dean of student affairs for the medical school. And most importantly, to me, Dr. Isabelle Jones is my mentor. That's a picture of me with Dr. Isabelle Jones. And I was so happy. I ran into her at a conference, and I had the opportunity to be able to tell her how she impacted my life. When I was a medical student at UCLA, I would go to Dr. Isabelle Jones' office during the breaks that I might have, just to say hi. I knew I wanted to be a pediatrician, and I was trying to determine if I wanted to specialize in anything or if I just wanted to do general pediatrics. And she always had an open door policy. Didn't matter what she was doing, didn't matter if she was busy or not. If I just came by and knocked on her door, she opened up the door and taught me a lot about being a Black woman in a academic institution, about being a Black woman in as a minority compared to so many men in a class of medical school. She just taught me so much, and more importantly, she was just there to listen and to support. So thank you so much, Dr. Josephine Isabelle Jones. We welcome you and we applaud you and thank you and appreciate you today in Women's History Month. So all y'all clap it up out there for Dr. Josephine Isabelle Jones, my mentor, and I thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, in addition to it being Women's History Month, as you know, this is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And this month we have already done 2 shows on colorectal cancer awareness. We had our first show. If you haven't seen these episodes, I'm encouraging you to go back and look at them. We had our guest, Dr. Ralph Peterson, a GI specialist, talk about from his perspective. And then we also had Dr. Kim Rhodes, who is, I will call her retired, although she won't say she's retired, but she's no longer practicing, but was a colorectal cancer surgeon and is now the Assistant Community Director of Community Engagement for the UCSF Comprehensive Cancer Center at the UCSF School of Medicine. So really cool, great folks to talk to us about colorectal cancer. And so if you haven't seen those episodes, I'm really encouraging you to watch it. They are jam-packed, full of nuggets to help you stay healthy, not just for you, but for everybody in your family. Because when you're aware, you spread the knowledge to those around you. So as you know, our guest tonight is Tony Tomato, but in true Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, Tony had his colonoscopy today. He had his colonoscopy today, and so Tony is a little groggy and so is not going to join us live tonight. But never fear. We are in the age of video, digital, audio advancements. So even though Tony Tomato is not here tonight for part 1 of spring planting, we still found a way to bring you some nuggets and a greeting from him. And so the way it's going to work is tonight is part 1. He's going to tell you what to gather, what to plant, how to plant it. And then next week, so during the week, you got to go get your stuff, do your planting, because next week, God willing, he will be back on live to answer your questions about what might have gone wrong in your planting, any questions you had around when you went out to shop and look for soil or look for seeds or Look for plants. So he's going to be back for part 2 next Thursday to talk about spring planting. So tonight is part 1. Next week is part 2. So we're going to send out prayers to you, Tony, and thank you for putting this together. Even though you can't be live, we thank you and appreciate your efforts for making sure that you all were not disappointed tonight, and you're going to get to hear from our farming expert, Tony Tomato. So here we go. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dr. Donna. Now, every Thursday, I know you have your appointment with her, and this week, we're going to do a 2-part series. Now, I'm Tony Tomato. I'm here in St. Louis, and Dr. Donna is my sister. And you know, Dr. Donna is really all about let's eat healthy. So what we wanted to incorporate over these next 2 segments is to show you how easy it is to plant some of these spring greens that we're paying so much money for. As you look at this table here, this is loaded with sunflower, cabbage, pea shoots, wheat. I know you live in California and all over the country. Many of you love those green smoothies. Look, it's very easy to grow this stuff. And so what we're gonna do is just show you how to get started on today's episode. I want you to go out this weekend and buy some of these things, order some of these different seeds over the different seed catalogs, and then plant over the weekend. Next week, we're gonna be back and we're gonna see what your progress has been, and I'll be here to answer your questions. And you know, like with any farming, we expect a little bit of failure, but check this out. Real simple. Garden soil, different types of planter boxes, and all these simple things can be done in your backyard or on your patio. As you see, I have my planter boxes in the back. So this is not a big task, but the yield will be fantastic and the health benefits will be phenomenal for you and your family. All right, let's get started. So one of the things I want to talk about is microgreens and growing them. But I think before we get into growing them, I need to give you a little bit more background why I get so excited about microgreens. First of all, in essence, they're just the baby plants. They're baby broccoli, baby cilantro, baby leaves of basil. But here's the benefit. These microgreens are loaded with so much nutritional value. There's potassium, there's iron, there's zinc, there's magnesium. Even antioxidants can be found in these little bitty tiny plants. But keep in mind, they are fast to grow and they don't really require a lot of space, just a little bit of sun and so forth. And we'll kind of get into that. But these plants are delicious. And one of the other things you may be crossing your mind right now is like, okay, how do I eat this? What are the ways to do it? You know, you can take sunflower seeds that are grown that'll take 2 weeks and you can add them to an omelet, or you can even put them on flatbread. You can use microgreens instead of lettuce in your tacos or your sandwiches, even on your burgers. You know, one of the things that we really see a lot of is that they can be garnished with your salads and soups. And again, you know, added to your pizzas. So that's kind of why I get excited about microgreens, okay? So what we really need to get started with microgreens are a few trays. Now, usually the trays are about 10 inches wide by about 20 inches long. You know, I made a phone call out to the Ace Hardware store on 3rd Street in Oakland, and they do have a similar tray, or what we would refer to as a type of medium that you can grow this plant in, all right? And from that standpoint, you need to find yourself a soil, right? I use a nice soil that has all of the fertilizers in it and nutrients to kind of help the plants grow. But if you really don't have access to a farmer's type supply store, you can still use organic dirt. I've seen soil that has mushroom compost in it that usually works really well in growing microgreens, okay? So as we start going through this series of photos here, you'll see in one of the trays where there's 3 simple mounds. So basically, I just took a cup and I scooped it into the soil and I made 3 simple little mounds that's there. And again, you can see the tray. There's 2 trays that you'll see that usually work best, because you need to have one tray that has some perforations in it so that when you water your microgreens, it starts to, it has a place to go and drain through. And also the roots from the different seeds, as they start to germinate, will continue to grow. So as you see, I just have your basic, bucket that we use to water your plants outside. And after you have laid out the three different, mounds or three cups of dirt, you kind of level it out. Some of my partners will use a ruler and make sure that it's nice and flat, but I just kind of give it a little shake and just kind of eyeball to see if the dirt is even. And that's pretty much all you need. But it really is important to wet that dirt, okay? And so after you have wet the dirt, then you want to just choose whatever your seeds are. So as you're looking in this slide, I have some rubber gloves on, and that's just a little cup of black sunflower seeds. And you just kind of broadcast them out. And when I say broadcast, you can put it in a salt or type of a little shaker or pepper shaker if you want to work with that way. But I mean, just shaking the items out so that they are touching each other throughout the tray evenly. You want to try not to stack up on top of each other, because then you're starting to waste your seeds. But you can see in one of the slides that there's the sunflower seeds that are completely out. Now, once that's happened, I also come back and I take a little bit of dirt and just kind of cover the top of the seeds so that there's something for them to stick to, right? Now, the next thing that is really important, and usually for sunflower seeds and for radishes and cilantro, I try to cover that tray. So I'll take another tray and I'll just cover it so that those plants, the dirt, they start to sweat and really get the plant to germinate. Okay, as we move into some of our other slides, I want to just share with you just a few different examples of different types of potting soil that are out there. I just went to Home Depot, and they had a couple different soils, just like a regular compost, a topsoil, and then also there's one for Miracle-Gro for gardens and so forth. But if I'm using it for microgreens, I would probably stick to just a regular dirt, or just try to find some organic stuff. Now, as we move on to the next slide, you'll see just a different variety of pots. Now, it was kind of funny because at Home Depot, they thought, who is this guy just creating this little display of all the pots? But I just wanted to kind of give you an example that, surprisingly enough, whether or not you live on a big 1 acre parcel, or if you're in a high rise with just a balcony, as long as you have some sun and you've got a pot and something that can hold some dirt in, you're going to be fantastic, in growing these different items. Now, one other little trick that I usually use here is, because these pots are so big, and if you were to fill that with a lot of dirt, then it's going to be really heavy to maneuver. So I would probably use about a third of each of these pots and just put plastic bottles in the bottom of it, just your water bottles that you would normally use, or old milk containers, something to just kind of support, because the plants only need about maybe 4 to 6 inches of dirt in order for them to be successful. But the pots do look nice and they're decorative, and it's going to grow. All right, so as we wrap up this segment, I wanted to kind of share with you one of the things that I just brings me so much joy, and it really just kind of shows you how resilient plants are. So I love basil and cilantro so much that I dedicate whole planter boxes to each of the plants. But I also get a kick out of watching basil grow out of the large pots. So remember, with the pots, it's not all dirt. I put about a third of it with empty plastic water bottles, right? Just things that fill it up, Coke, 1.5 liters, anything that I can to kind of, create the pot so I don't have to use a whole lot of dirt. But it's real simple. I grab a handful of seeds. And when I say handful, I'm talking about maybe a tablespoonful. And I just spread it across the planter box, cover it with dirt, and I just lightly water it and go on about my business. And after a few weeks, 14 days or so, you'll start seeing, well, actually about 14 days, you'll start seeing the basil plants pop up. And then you let them kind of grow. And then all summer long, because I have tons of tomatoes, I have the great topping for my caprese salads. And then I try to get into a pattern of doing that every 3 weeks. So throughout the whole summer, I will have basil. So here's some things I shared with you. I hope you found them to be helpful. Get going, and we'll get back together again in another week, and we'll get a chance to see how your progress is, and we'll answer most of your questions. So thank you again for your time. Take care. Love y'all.
Hey, technology, y'all! Woo! All right, I hope that you guys got some tips about what to do in your gardens this week, seeds to buy, making sure that you have the planter box. And I love that hack of putting water bottles at the bottom of the pot so that you don't have to completely fill a pot or a barrel with a bunch of dirt and then you can't move it from place to place like you want on the deck. I love that. So I'm hoping that you all learned something. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. Not that I can particularly answer, but we'll see. Hello, everybody. Hello from Brazil, Elisita. We miss you. Let's see. Everyone hopefully got a good visual. Challenge accepted. Annette, I love it. Christina, you're going to plant some microgreens. Fantastic. So I can't wait for you all to come back next week for part 2 with Tony Tomato, who will be here live to answer your questions. Like he said, farming, you got to expect a little bit of failure, right? And I think he put that in there for me. But I'm going to do it this year. I got my herbs. I got a lettuce garden growing in the side from the last time he was here. Got my herb plants. I'm ready. I had planted some Brussels sprouts earlier last season, so I'm ready, y'all. Okay, so make sure you tune in next week for part 2 of Tony's Tomato coming live, answering your questions, and gather up everything you need, and let's see you back next week. All right, so let's turn to our needs to knows. So as you know, every week we talk about the hot topics, the things that you really need to know for this week. And so our need to know this week, number 1, need to know, is I want to make sure that you're aware, next slide, of the importance of a diet, healthy diet. So we talk about, with Tony Tomato, we're planting our foods, we're planting some lettuce, some sunflower seeds, some other type of seeds, some of your herbs, you are planting them. And I want to give you a little bit of information as to why we're planting. So there was some studies that have been done on diet and how diet impacts your mortality, which is how long you stay alive. And what they found were issues with your diet are the number 1. Unhealthy diet is the number 1 leading cause of mortality. I'm going to say that and let that sink in for you because I know we do exercise, we think about genetics, we think about all sorts of things. But what they have found is our leading cause of mortality is an unhealthy diet. So that's what we're attempting to do with these shows, is to show you what you can do to change your diet and improve how long you live and how well you live. Next slide. Let's look at what type of, we always talk about eating more fruits, eating more vegetables, but there is actually, studies show a difference between which type of vegetable you add to your diet that has the most impact. So the green leafy vegetables, if you have increased what you eat now by 1 serving, which is about half a cup of these vegetables, if you increase that by 1 serving every single day, you can significantly decrease your risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And if you've been watching my show, I hope you know this answer. I'm waiting, which remind me, Donnell and Elwood, to tell the answer from the last challenge I gave of the silent killer. But tonight's question, and who gets it first, is going to be, I just lost it. I'll come back to it. Okay, so Green leafy vegetables, increasing how much you eat by 1 serving, half a cup. It's going to decrease your risk of type 2 diabetes and decrease your risk of heart disease. Okay? Here's my question, challenge question. Whoever gets it first, let me look down and see who's going to answer it first. You ready? Get your fingers ready to type. What is the #1 cause of death in the United States? All right, that's our challenge. So it does matter if you just increase vegetables, okay? That makes a difference. And it, of course, matters if you increase the amount of fruits that you eat in your diet every day. But what gives you the biggest bang for your buck and the biggest impact on your health is going to be adding servings of green leafy vegetables, okay? All right, let's see. Elisita, you don't count, so you don't get the prize. Hey, Bella, you win. Heart disease. Yes, heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States across ethnicities, across genders. #1, heart disease. Yay, Bella, you got it. Yeah, I see a couple of you got it too, but Bella was quick on the typing. I got you, Bella. Good job. All right. That's the #1. #2 need to know. So we're talking about Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And why, some people have been asking me, why are we really harping on colorectal cancer awareness? So #1 reason is because it is the #2 cause of cancer death in men and women, right? So #1 cause of death across all ethnicities and across genders is heart disease, okay? Cancer is #2. And of cancer, the #2, the second highest cause of death in both men and women is colorectal cancer. That's why we're spending a lot of time on it this month, because it's one of those cancers that it takes lots of time for symptoms to develop, but by the time the symptoms develop, it could possibly be too late. We also have been talking about the importance of doing screening and importance of having colonoscopies. And so again, look at my episodes with Dr. Peterson and Dr. Rhodes to really get the information about what type of screenings you should get and when you should get them. So today, as I mentioned, Tony Tomato had his 10-year colonoscopy. It had been 10 years since he'd had his screening. And thankfully, when he went in today to get his colonoscopy, and they found 2 polyps. One, a pretty good-sized polyp, and another, a small polyp, that were both precancerous. Thankfully, he went in, got his colonoscopy, and they were able to remove both of those polyps. Now, if he hadn't been vigilant and be on his colonoscopy, who knows what might have happened. So I'm glad, Tony Tomato, you went in to get your colonoscopy, and that what they found early enough to simply remove during the colonoscopy. So I'm encouraging you out there, even though you may not have a history of colorectal cancer in your family, even though you may think that you eat well and you exercise, doesn't matter. The risk of colorectal cancer is there, and so we want to make you aware of it and make sure you understand. All right. Next, #3 need to know, got to talk about COVID. I know that everyone thinks that we're on the other side of COVID. It has been nearly 2 years this month that when we first went to shelter in place. And through those 2 years, we've lost many, many, many people. Over 1 million people have lost their lives to this virus. And more, probably even more than about 70 million people have been infected and still have disabilities or issues related to that virus. So it is not anything that we are going to forget anytime soon, nor should we. What I wanted to point out tonight is that even though we seem to be out of a surge, let's continue to be vigilant. Because as we see it resurging in other parts of the world, and we see it resurging on the other coast in our own country, we know that it is going to make its way back to the West Coast. And what we're seeing here, what you're seeing here on the screen, is looking at the number of cases, and this is Alameda County data. So if you're watching from someplace out of Alameda County, this may not be the data for you, but for our county here, African Americans are the number 4 ethnicity, 4th highest ethnicity to have COVID cases. That means people who are testing positive. But look at who continues to be the number 1 ethnicity that dies from this disease, and that continues to be Blacks, African Americans, because we have never been dethroned. We've been number 1 from the beginning of this pandemic, and we are still number 1 today. Why am I telling you this? Because while the pandemic may be over for some people in some communities, particularly some of the more communities that are not as melanated as we are, in our community, in the Black community, we are still dying in the highest rate. So that means when you make a decision about whether or not to wear a mask when you are outdoors at a gathering, or whether or not you're indoors, whether you wear it around family members, whether you start to regather with your families, I want you to keep this statistic in mind. We are dying more than any other race. So please take your risk into consideration when you decide whether or not you're going to wear a mask and whether you're going to attend an event, because it's us that are most impacted. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is what's changing. Again, the government and everyone else is saying the pandemic is kind of over. And so because of that, they have stopped funding for a number of things that we started to take for granted during the surges. One of the things that is going to go into effect, has already gone into effect because of the date today went in effect, is that they are no longer going to pay for testing or treatment for folks who did not have insurance. And both of these facts are for folks who do not have insurance. So it used to be able, I don't know if you ever went to get testing, you could go get testing. They asked you if you had insurance. If you had it, you could give it. If not, wasn't a big deal. The testing was covered and it was paid for. No longer. That's not happening any longer. Testing and treatment is no longer free. That could be important as we come into this, what we anticipate is going to be another surge by the end of the summer and the beginning of the fall. The other thing that's coming is that they're going to stop paying for vaccinations. Remember, you could go to any place, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Costco, didn't matter. You could walk in and say, hey, I want a vaccine. And it was covered and paid for. No one hassled you. You walked in, got it, walked out. Nothing that you had to pay for. That's coming to an end as well. So I want to encourage you, if you have not already received your vaccine and you do not have health insurance, or your health insurance is not paying for these things, this is the time to make sure that you get your vaccines up to date. That includes your booster, because they will no longer be free after the 5th of April. Okay? So those are Dr. Donna's need to knows. I hope you took notes. I hope you're listening and paying attention, because things are changing. And whether or not they're changing for the better, time will tell. All right. So let's think about our food of the month, right? We've been talking about diet and the importance of having a good, healthy diet. Every month here on Talking with Dr. Donna, we have a new food. Our food of the month this month is broccoli. And you know what? I'm a little disappointed in y'all. Nobody's been posting anything about our good friend broccoli. It is a cruciferous vegetable, really good to help maintain your gut flora. Nice. See that synergy with Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And it helps with your immune system. Again, in the midst of this pandemic, good to have robust immune system. So broccoli, I want to encourage you out there to think about what you can create with broccoli. Let's be creative. Let's think about cooking broccoli and then posting so you can encourage other people to eat well, eat better, green vegetables, right? All right. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. I'm your host, Dr. Donna White Carey. If you are not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I appreciate it if you go over to YouTube. If you're watching from some other social media network, go to YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon so that you get notified every Thursday when you have an appointment with the doctor. I hope you have a great week. I hope you go out, buy all those things that you need so you can be prepared and ready for part 2 of spring planting with Tony Tomato. We'll be back next week. And I don't know if we ever got our slide, but I'm just giving my little shout out to UCLA Bruins in the Sweet 16 tomorrow playing UNC. And somebody bet me that UNC was going to beat us. So I can't wait until next week when I tell you that they had to ante up my box of C's candy. So you better be ready, Larry, because I'm coming for you. All right, go Bruins. Have a great night and take care until we see you again. If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you.